Huddle with paperplusoffice.co.nz, your local office supplies specialist, now open for business.
Cameron Slater from Whale Oil is with us. Hello, Cam.
G'day, Larry.
Josie Pagani is back with us. Hello, Josie.
Hi, guys.
Cam, the Ikaroa Rafiti by-election, Labour won. They were expected to win. Running second was the Mana Party. What did you see in it, Cam?
I didn't see an awful lot in it, and neither did most Maori by the looks of it in the electorate, because they couldn't be bothered turning out to vote.
35%, wasn't it?
I mean, what was the winning candidate? Labour, Mecca Whathiri, she got 42% of 36% turnout, so she's got a mandate of about, 15%.
So the turnout, I mean, you can't really compare it to the 2011 election because by-elections, turnout's always lower. So it's better to compare it to other by-elections. And if I compare it to, say, Mount Albert, which was probably Labour's most successful by-election in the last few years, and that was, of course, where David Shearer stood, the turnout there was just under 50%, I think. So in Ikaroa Rafiti, it was 35%. That's not good. That's not actually good for any of the parties, no. Larry. That's the problem. So there's no one is capturing a mood for change. No one's inspiring people. No one's really getting out there and getting people out. More people voted for
Parakura Horomia in the last election than voted in total in this by-election.
Yeah, but you can't. I don't think you can compare by-elections with elections because
Josie, you've touched on something that's quite correct there, and it's something that David Shearer and Labour should be very worried about, and especially after the transport announcements last week. There is no reason to change governments. There is no reason to vote against John Key, and that's a huge problem that Shearer has got, and no one's listening to him either.
I would say no one's articulating that. You see, the problem they've got is anyone who's been saying that Labour needs to be more like the Greens and then they'll suddenly get the surge of support. Well, the by-election showed that that's not the case. They don't need to be more like the Greens. The Greens did really badly in Ikaroa Rafiti. So what they need to do, and this is, I feel like I've been saying this for years now, get back to the principles, core principles of what it is to be Labour, which is jobs, it's wages, and then you'll start to talk to people, particularly in the provinces, right up in that electorate, whether you be Māori or Pākehā.
Cameron, there's now talk about the Maori Party and the Mana Party maybe getting together because they would have beat Labour, and they may have won they could win a whole bunch of Maori electorates. What do you make of that? I see how Harawira really has destroyed the Maori vote, hasn't he? He's cannibalised the Maori Party vote.
Well, Maori always fight. They're always going to fight. They always have fought, and they're always going to keep on fighting. No one can either agree because there's no such thing as Maori. Ngāpuhi are not Ngāti Porou are not Ngāi Tahu, and you're going to keep on getting that. So the reality is we've got this neo-colonial guilt situation of having some Maori seats that were never supposed to be permanent, and it's an electoral rort where the turnouts in the Maori seats are exceedingly low. It takes bugger all to get elected as an MP in a Maori seat compared to a general seat.
See, this is an interesting issue, though, that you've raised, Cam, that if the Māori Party is really based on identity, it's the Māori Party, well, where does that go? Obama isn't the leader of the African American Party, is he? And he certainly wouldn't be president of America if he was. So I think that Māori politics is actually starting to break up and fragment, which isn't a bad thing, because why should Māori have the same political views? Pākehā don't. We have different places. Cam and I don't agree.
And as treaty settlements get wound down, and all the major ones are settled now, it's only rats and mice.
And that's
the
problem.
Left over. The grievance industry will disappear. The need for having a political party to push those grievances. So what you're left with is Hone Harawira representing the young and the angry, and he just cuts up rough. And you've got, seriously, you have a look at some of the supporters, what they say on Facebook and in other areas. They're seriously deluded and permanently in grievance mode, and that's one thing I think that the majority of Maori have moved on from.
We'll come back in a moment to Cameron Slater, Josie Pagani on the Huddle. It's 15-6.
Larry Williams Drive with the new ANZ, the bank that gives you more.
Back on the Huddle with Cameron Slater and Josie Pagani. Josie, just before we wrap up the domestic political scene, what about David Shearer? Forces gathering, do you believe?
I don't think so. I mean, I think it's different. People keep comparing it to Australia. The difference there is in Australia you had a sitting Prime Minister who was popular. The polls were good for him. And I think that's part of Julia Gillard's problem, is that the people never really forgave her for taking out a popular Prime Minister at the time. So here you've got a situation where you've got a leader of the Labor Party in opposition. There's no one obvious for him to take his place.
What do you think of Mr Shearer's position, Cameron?
I think it is perilous when you've got people talking. I had a quick chat with a couple of old-time Labor people who are out of politics now over the weekend, and they're saying whenever there's open talk, even though we don't know who the people are who are talking, the fact that they are talking to different people in the media says that his leadership is in peril, and it's only a matter of time. And the timeline of the spring offensive, if you want, for want of a better term, may even in fact be shorter than that, depending on polls. I think they are waiting for the next set of polls, but they're some time off from the two major TV networks, and you can't really believe the up and down nature of Roy Morgan. The bottom line is that David Shearer couldn't articulate anything, and they've run out of time.
Josie?
Yeah, but come on, Cam. I mean, you know as well as I do that national and national commentators will be loving the fact that we're all talking about the Labor Party again and factions in the Labor Party.
Well, no, I want David Shearer to stay. I think he's a decent bloke, and I think his ideas on privatising the military and outsourcing and all of those sorts of things are great ideals, and I want him to stay.
Yeah.
And look, there's just one point to make here, though, Larry, that it can't happen in the same way that it happened in Australia, because don't forget the Labor Party changed its rules. So they have to get, I think it's 40% of caucus to agree they want a vote, and then it goes to the membership. So
yeah, but you can easily get round that, Josie. You can easily get round that, because if David Cunliffe and Grant Robertson have a meeting, they agree to bury the hatchet, the old guard come in behind, because they're the ones that are propping up Shearer anyway. They put Robertson as the leader, Cunliffe as the deputy, and then caucus agrees to not have anybody else put their name forward for the leadership.
No, but it still has to go to the membership.
Well, there'll only be one name on the ballot.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not something that would suddenly happen over.
Just briefly,
hands power to the unions who have a vote on the membership.
Okay, just briefly, Josie, across the Tasman, Simon Crean, he's quitting politics. He put his hand up to try and be Deputy Prime Minister last week. But the polls are showing that Rudd has actually improved things, markedly so, which I can't work out, but what do you see in it?
No, it's funny, isn't it? I mean, he's just such an unattractive man. This is a guy who refers to himself all the time as yours truly. I think I loved one of the overseas media. Their headline was, Mandarin-speaking former Beijing diplomat turned state government bureaucrat resumes power. There's something very pompous about him. He's got those exaggerated hand gestures where if he says, let's draw a line under it, he actually does draw a line.
Cameron?
I don't get it.
Look, Australian politics is fantastic for the observer. There's always blood and guts, and they always show that. But, the polls showing the bounce there for the replacement of the leader. Maybe Labour's caucus here in New Zealand will look to that and axing their leader and maybe get a polls bounce.
Thank you for that. That is Cameron Slater and Josie Pagani on The Huddle. NewstalkZB, Darcy Waldegrave is with us next. It's now 9 to